Hi all, and Happy New Year. I had my first game of the season, well, of the new year, last night. Barnet Chess Club was playing Royston. I was playing Kevin Clark, who is about 176 ECF now, but last year he was like 193 and the year before about 190, so I thought he was a dangerous opponent. Royston were the league champions in the previous season of the Hertfordshire League, and we were fortunate they didn't have Lauren da Costa, who's now an IM. He wasn't playing on board one, so John Piggott drew quite quickly, and I had a longer game, and I kicked off with e4. My opponent played e5. Due to the importance of the match, I was a little bit concerned that if I didn't play a surprise move here, I could be walking into a Sleeman or something nasty, which he might have prepared. So I thought I'd try and surprise him a little bit with knight c3, which I had in mind. I thought I saw some games of Spassky which were like this. He actually, after g3, he simply played knight c6. And actually, I was looking this up in chessgames.com, and really, there's actually a distinction to be drawn here between if black had played knight c6 or knight f6. Here, maybe f4 statistically is the most aggressive move, giving white the best result. So it's kind of Vienna game where you're trying to undermine black's central control straight away. So maybe I should have played that here instead of this more quiet move g3, because after knight c6, bishop g2, he just plays bishop c5, and this bishop's always going to be annoying. When I castle, it's going to inhibit me playing f4 later. And already, I was a bit concerned. Knight ge2. I thought maybe knight g4 here. And apparently, yes, Rybka likes this for black as well. If castles, maybe just h5 here. And already, maybe white's in trouble. But actually, this could be over-ambitious because of knight a4, apparently. So, if black hasn't played a6 to tuck that bishop away, maybe that's not so bad. But I wanted to stop knight g4, so I played another passive move, h3. And this is not really an ideal way of playing. Black's already at least equalised or even better now. After a6, he's got a tucking square for his bishop on a7. Tuck it away. d3, d6. Now I just wanted to exchange off those bishops, even if I have doubled pawns, because maybe the f-file later could be useful. But the way I played it was overly aggressive. I played g4, and as a way of clamping down on black playing f5, that's fine. But I pushed my luck far too much now, because after knight e7, he's got a positional threat, knight g6 to h4. I thought, well, I want to discourage that as well. So I went a bit crazy here. I played g5. The problem with g5 is that once this knight retreats, black's going to be able to get in f5 and f4. So maybe I should just try and keep this structure here with e4 and g4 to try and stop f5, and carry on with, say, knight ge2. Maybe white isn't so bad here. Say knight g3, castles. If knight h4, maybe knight f5, and at least I'm using that semi-open file on the f5 outpost square. In the game I managed to lose both those assets, and black took advantage of my play very, very well. I played g5, just overly aggressive, because now, as we'll see, after h4, he can first threaten as though he's going to play for d5. He plays c6, and that also opens up usefully the b6 square for the queen to target this e3 vulnerability. After queen f3, he also uses a second trump in his position, which is based on the fact that my pawn's no longer on g4, so he can now freely play f5, also targeting my queen. g3 isn't a particularly good square, so overall it's not been a great opening for me. But we are playing to the faster time control here, not the adjudication mode. So maybe that was part of my optimism for just trying to play the opening in an unusual way, not necessarily a theoretically correct way, because it was 80 minutes for all moves. So knight f3, queen b6. So I passively retreat the knight just to defend e3, knowing he's got this constant threat of f4, maybe to try and get the e5 square for his knight if I took on f4. But actually he played knight c7, just slowly preparing it with knight e6 and then f4. I played h5 with the idea maybe of creating a fawn pawn, a fawn as in thorn pawn in his position with h6. So if he plays g6 and I can later somehow break through, then that pawn on h6 would be dangerous. But this never occurred in the game. I never actually got an opportunity to be tempted to play h6. The pawns also later were proven to be weak, in many variations. He plays f4, and he uses this to really tie me down now to a very passive position. He doesn't even go for the kingside attack with b4. He just, again, another position move, calmly developing his pieces. So he's basically positionally outplaying me. But as I say, this is a team match, and if the team won, I would still be happy if I managed to secure a draw somehow. So my main priority here is to try and neutralise his best piece here to avoid any embarrassing tactics. So that bishop f1, stopped the embarrassing knight e2 checks, winning my queen in some variations. And I'm able at least to try and trade it off. But he doesn't go for my king. He goes for the f-file pressure, which is quite positionally annoying. And I don't really want to take on f2 here. If taking on f2, I think my position starts to collapse in variations that I saw. I have to be very careful. d1, rook d1, rook af8. Black's clearly better here, but is it enough to carve up a win? I'm not sure. Rook h2, and he can start targeting with rook f to f2, doubling the rooks on the 7th. So it's quite unpleasant. That's why I chose queen h2, just to try and keep possession of my second row. But as we'll see, this becomes quite awkward now. After he takes queens and plays rook f4, I awkwardly play rook g1. So after rook af8, to be able to play the nice passive move rook g to g2. So I doubled on my second rank. So thankfully he hasn't got any back row tricks in this position, as far as I was aware. He plays d5 though, so he starts to put immediate pressure now on e4. And he intensifies that now with another knight manoeuvre, knight c8 to d6, to add more weight to pressure on e4. So I play bishop d1, which gives me potential resources like bishop b3 if needed. And actually after knight d6, when I took on d5, I was surprised actually he didn't just play c takes d5, not giving himself the isolated pawn. He actually played bishop d5 to my relief, because I think that's an inaccuracy. According to Ribka, that's an inaccuracy as well, because after my next move, bishop b3, I'm taking the punch out of him playing e4 here. After e4, I just took on e4 and offered a draw. One thing I had noticed, it was a 5-board match. David Hotham on board 4 had a promising attack earlier, so I was hoping he would win, and actually he did. And also Alex Eflontis won on board 3, so we ended up winning the match 3-2, and Royston were the champions last year in this league. So even though my game was depressingly passive, it was part of securing the match victory. Let's have a look at it again just quickly. I think if I was going to play this again, I'd play f4 here and try and learn some of the main variations. So f4. So if black's going to play passively with d6, then that's no problem. White retains a slight advantage. So e takes d4, and you'll be getting the centre. And if black, has difficulties holding on to the pawn here, so you'll get a nice centre like King's Gambit. But I think the critical test is actually d5 if you're going to play this Vienna stuff. So maybe f takes, knight takes. I believe d3 is played here. So there's quite a bit of theory on this. It gets quite sharp. Anyway, I didn't play it like that. I played passively and basically grovelled a draw later, because again, from this passive setup, to play g5 is inviting black to play f5 and f4 later, so that became particularly unpleasant positionally, especially when black refused to just go for my king. So basically positionally he played on his trumps, which was the f-file, and to try and maximise his positional pressure. So that was a harder task to deal with. Thankfully, I think this was the major inaccuracy here, not playing c takes d5. So I finally equalised, I think. So this was a reasonable draw offer now after D takes E4, which was thankfully accepted. I hope there's something instructive in there. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.